The Ontario government announced today it's cutting tuition fees paid by university and college students. So why then are some students complaining? Well, along with a 10% tuition cut, the government is also making changes to its Ontario Student Assistance Plan. First, free tuition grants will no longer be available to low-income students. Also, the income threshold for families applying for student loans will be lowered from $175,000 to $140,000. Finally, that 6-month interest-free grace period after school is finished, Ontario is getting rid of that, meaning interest payments will begin right after students graduate. The government says these changes will help pay off the province's multi-billion-dollar deficit. But why target young people seeking an education? Marilee Fullerton is Ontario's Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities, and she joins us from Toronto. Minister, thank you for speaking with us today. Can you explain why this cut, why the tuition cut?
Well, this is a very important tuition cut of 10%. It is to improve affordability and accessibility for our students. Ontario's students pay some of the highest tuition fees in all of Canada, particularly university fees. And so we want to make sure that post-secondary education is affordable for students and give them tuition relief. We heard this across the province in the campaign during the election, and then afterwards we received emails and letters and spoke to many students about how high the tuition was, and they were really asking us to do something. And I feel very proud that we are having the very first ever province-wide, this is historical and unprecedented, with a 10% reduction in tuition fees for all Ontario students. So all Ontario students will benefit from that. And I think this is a really, really long-awaited, and many students, we're hearing very positive news from many students.
Now, Minister, we spoke with Andrew Thompson, who's the Chief of Government Relations for the University of Toronto, on the Power Panel just a moment ago, and he said that there were absolutely no consultations with the University of Toronto about this. Did you do consultations with universities and colleges about this change?
Well, like I said, this is an unprecedented historic tuition cut of 10% for students across the board.
But did you do consultations? Did you do consultations with post-secondary education?
We spoke with students, and this is putting students first. We believe very strongly that post-secondary students deserve affordable and cost-effective and efficient programs. And we know that students are the future. Their future matters. Students matter. And we are putting students first.
But you did not, so you're saying you did not consult with post-secondary education institutions about this?
We've had many discussions with many people. And the students
but specifically, I'm just trying to confirm here specifically, did you consult with them? Because these are the groups, according to the statistics, that this cut could cost universities $360 million a year, colleges $80 million a year. How are they supposed to make up that cut?
Well, I think it's important to clarify that the 10% tuition reduction is not reflective and does not translate to a direct 10% in revenue cuts or revenue reduction for institutions. The 2 to 4% is basically what it amounts to in the end. But, you know, I think we have to put students first. And I'm really, really pleased to be able to say that tuition will be reduced by 10%, that we are making education more affordable for students, and this is something that students are telling us. And I think it's important to listen to students. And that's what we've done during the campaign and after. And students can tell us what they need. And we've heard from very many students, as I said, in many different instances where they are telling us that they needed tuition relief. And it's $450 million worth of tuition relief for students, and putting students as the priority, students first.
So why change the grace period through the Ontario, the assistance program? Previously, if students had student loans through the Ontario assistance program, they had a 6-month grace period before interest started building on those loans. Why kill that grace period?
Well, the grace period is important to recognize that it aligns with the federal aspect of OSAP. So OSAP is an integrated system with the federal government and the provincial government. It's also interesting to note the vast majority of the federal component is loan, and the vast majority of the provincial component has been grant. And so we're aligning with the federal component. And I think that's important to point out. This is a unprecedented 10% tuition reduction that all students will benefit from.
And we have heard you. We've heard you say that a couple of times. There are some complaints that students won't benefit from the killing of this grace period. But I want to ask, how much money specifically is the province going to save per year by ending that grace period?
Well, you know, we're putting students first. So when we talk about what students will save,
but how much money will the province save per year by ending the 6-month grace period?
Well, I want to be clear that this is about saving students' money, students and their families.
But overall, though, Minister, this is though about as the Premier did run during his election campaign. He said that the Conservatives need to get the finances of Ontario in order, and he said that there are going to be changes to the way things are run, and he campaigned on that. He won on that.
Well,
but how much though? How much is that? That's one part of this program that a lot of students are upset about. So what is, and I've seen academics upset about it too. One even I saw on Twitter called it cruel. So how much money is that specific change going to actually save the government per year?
Well, you know, when we look at student debt with OSAP, we know that OSAP is a very, very important program, and we want to make sure that it is sustainable over the long term. The Auditor General's report from 2018 indicated that OSAP was ballooning, and the sustainability of it was at risk. So we feel very strongly that we need to have a sustainable Ontario Student Assistance program for students who need it the most. And families and students who need it the most, that's where our focus has been. In fact, what we've seen as the share of grants increase with our plan from 76% to 82%. So I think that's important to recognize that we're increasing the grants that are available for families that are at $50,000 and under.
Minister, can I just ask one last question? And I ask this with respect, and I want to say thank you for coming on our program. Do you know how much that's going to save the government per year?
Well, I can tell you that it's going to save students 10%.
No, but the one, I'm just going to go back at I'm just going to try one more time. The 6-month change that is causing a lot of frustration for students. Some academics calling it cruel. Do you know how much it's going to save the government?
I'd like to clarify the 6-month grace period.
Absolutely.
So the students will not have to start paying back their loans until 6 months, but the interest will start to accrue. Mm-hmm. And so there is confusion surrounding the grace period. So I think
but the grace period, reasonable. The previous grace period, there was no interest accruing. Now there is interest accruing.
Well, if you look at this, is aligning with the federal side of things, and so we're happy to operate an integrated program. And if you look at what the federal Liberals have done over time, the tuition rates have skyrocketed. OSAP ballooned and was no longer sustainable, according to the Auditor General. And so I think aligning with the feds on this particular aspect of the grace period is fair and reasonable.
Okay, Minister, we're going to leave it there. And I really do thank you for your time today. And I did mean that last question with respect. And I want to thank you very much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.